Hey guys, Natalie here with Canine Performance and welcome to the video. Before we get started, I do want to let you know this is going to be a much longer video, but I recommend that you stick around from start all the way to the finish because it is going to be jam-packed full of information that I typically only give to clients at the go home session. So without further ado, let's take a look. Hey guys, Natalie here with Canine Performance, and I would like to introduce Ruger to our 2-week board and train program. Ruger is a 6-month-old German Shepherd dog, and he comes to us with a little bit of basics of obedience, but he really needs a lot more reliability, accountability for behavior, and he needs to learn how to calm down and be able to function on his own. So for the next 2 weeks, we are going to be working on a calmer state of mind, some more reliability in those basic obedience commands, and building more engagement in between him and his handler. Hey guys, Natalie here with Canine Performance, and 2 weeks ago Ruger was dropped off and now his owner Mackenzie is going to be here any minute now. So I wanted to walk you through what the hands-on portion of a go-home session looks like for one of my board and train dogs. I know that they are in a numbered list, but one is not more important to the other one because they all have to work cohesively together. But the first thing that I am going to talk about is going to be timing. So in dog training, timing is super important. So you only have a very minimal window of time where you have to correct or reward a behavior. So how much time do you think that you have in order to correct a behavior? Like he does something and you have to communicate to him of like, hey, yo dude, like you weren't supposed to do that.
I would say like 3 seconds.
1.3 seconds.
Oh,
1.3 seconds. I know, it's so short. So this is a very important thing to understand, however, because there's a lot of things like, I don't know if you ever heard it, but if a dog like poops in your house, you're supposed to like go over there and like stick their face in it, right? And it's like,
I've heard of that, but it's been a long time, but yeah.
it's a very common one that like I hear a lot of people doing, but just even for basic things of like, say for example, that you're working on obedience with him and he's holding a down stay over there and you turn your back for a second to go do something, right? And then he breaks that down stay and then by the time that you turn around, he's already near you, you're way too late to correct that behavior. If you correct him, he's gonna look at you and be like, who peed in your Cheerios? Like, well, what's going on? Because he can't correlate the two, right? So 1.3 seconds is how quick you have to be to correct a behavior, but also to reward one. If he chooses to do a behavior correctly, you also only have that small period of time to communicate to him of like, hey, good job, dude. Like, I really like that you did that. You should do some more of that. So when I tap that button, that's a correction from the e-collar, okay? So when I am giving communication to the dog, through the e-collar, through levels 1 through 20, right? I'm hitting those numbers all the time. Like if I'm in a training session, it could very well sound like that, right? So let's say I say sit, he doesn't sit, I say no, sit, right? I gave him that low level communication, right? At the level that he needs, and we'll go over how to decide what level to use. He doesn't sit, I say no, sit, and until his butt touches the ground, I am continuing to communicate to him, right? I'm using these levels all of the time. Correctional level would be, say for example, that I'm walking along and I totally miss all of his body language signals that he's loading onto another dog, right? And he starts to break out of the heel position and he starts to participate in a behavior that's really bad, then I'm going to use a much higher level correction for that because his behavior determines what level that we use on the e-collar. And I would say no, and then that's it, right? This would be something along the lines of bar biting in the crate if he's never shown that, but if he did that, trash diving, counter surfing, poop eating, really bad behaviors that you never want him to ever do again. That's where you use the higher levels, and you only want to apply that once and then hopefully be done with that behavior forever, right? So the way that I think about it is that this is just information to the dog, right? That's all that is. Remember, because they learn physical, visual, verbal. So I want to communicate a lot of information to him, right? Out of a day, if I were to use the e-collar, say 100 times in a day, I am probably going to use this communication level right here, probably around like 90 times out of the 100. I would use my correctional level maybe like 8 times, and then maybe in a day. Like, I don't think he's ever been positively punished for a behavior at all in the time that he's been with me. He would be positively punished like maybe twice, right? Yeah. So these are things that you're really, really removed with. When it comes to the prong collar, let's skip my leash, we can do the exact same thing. I'm walking along, right? And I'm walking, and maybe he starts to get a little ahead of me, right? And so I'm just gonna give like a quick tap tap on the e-collar to remind me of like, hey dude, like you're pushing ahead on the walk, right? Like I need you to be in that heel position, right? That's just information to him. That's just like, oh, yep, sorry, and then move back, right? He starts to lag behind. I'm like, okay, let's go. And then I give a little tap tap on the leash and the prong collar, and that tells him, oh, I was zoning out, I was just lagging behind, right? He sees another dog, and I don't want him to be staring at the other dog and, you know, hackles rising and about to bark. So I'm gonna say, nope, and then do a harder correction, right? And then with the prong collar, that would be pretty, you know, extreme. That would be like where you're like, no, right? And there's really no need for that when you have an e-collar implemented, right? So think of it less of like you are trying to punish behaviors. You are simply providing information. You're simply communicating with the dog. The next thing that we are going to go over is going to be feeling what the e-collar feels like, because this is really, really important, right? So the one thing to remember is that this is not a shock collar, okay? So why is that important? For one, I think that terminology that we use is really important for one. Yeah. For two is that because this is a TENS unit, it is a muscle stimulator. Have you ever been to a chiropractor and you had those patches like put on you to like stimulate muscles? No. Well, if you ever have muscle soreness, you can actually like use this like on your own skin. Like you can like put this on your shoulder because it is a TENS unit. And so that means that you must have skin contact, because what happens is in between these two contact points, it will stimulate the muscle, which means that it will pick the muscle up and then it will set it back down, which is how the sensation is felt, right? That's why it feels like a tapping sort of sensation, right? So if it was a shock collar, you could just simply put it on your dog and you could just go about your merry way because it'll just shoot out volts of electricity, right? It's just, right? And we don't want that. So what I want you to do is I want you to put this into your hand like that, lightly hold it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up by 2 levels and you tell me when you feel anything at all, and I want you to describe what you feel, okay? So. No?
Oh, yeah, it's like a little, yeah, it's like a tap.
It's like a tap, yeah. Right? Is it
Yeah.
painful?
No.
No. Can you see any sort of reaction from your hand at all? Okay, now if I go like this, what does that feel like?
It just feels like a lot of them.
It feels like a lot of them, but that's a really long time that you're under that pressure,
Yeah.
right? So that's a level 15.
Okay.
Ruger, it'll respond on a level 5.
Wow, okay.
Right?
So you don't even have to really get that high.
You don't have to get that high. Remember our little chart
Yeah.
of our communication level,
Yeah.
right? You're at 15 on that communication level. You are breaching into his correctional levels.
Okay.
Do you kind of see what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you're providing information to him, that's how it's not an emotionally charged thing. It's simply just information, right? It's a communication system that he understands. The most important part about training and why it's so important to have a professional introduce a tool like this is because how you introduce it is very, very important. This is a neutral stimulus at the beginning. And so for him, he was taught that he is in control of turning this sensation on or off.
Okay.
He turns it on by not doing a command. He turns it off by completing the command, right?
Yeah.
It's impossible to have a shutdown dog in this system because the dog feels empowered by the communication, right? Because he's in control of it and he understands that, right? It's not just pure punishment, it is communication. So really important to always stick with a Hermspringer prong collar. You see how all of these prongs are all facing the same way?
Right.
Comparatively to this one where all the prongs are facing inwards, right? So this one has an equal distribution of pressure, right? All of them contract and close at the same time. Whereas in this one, you will actually have a torquing effect. So you will torque the skin, right? And that's what gives prong collars such a bad rap, is because this is what's available in pet stores where they're mass manufactured, and so the ends are just chunk, chunk, chunk. and they're not created equally. And so with this, they're very smooth and they're rounded, right? So that equal distribution of pressure. So first things first is, you see how there's this nice triangle right here? So, and there's this O-ring right here, and then there's this D-ring right here. So this one is the one that swivels. And what happens to my triangle when I give a correction is that it has that nice open and close, right? What happens if I put the leash here? What happens to my triangle?
It's twisted up.
It's all sorts of fucked up, right? Like, you can't really give a correction, right? So it's important that when you put the prong collar on, that this isn't twisted. You have that nice triangle right here, and it looks just like that, and that you put the leash onto this D-ring right here, right? Also, for the other thing is that where the center dividing plate goes is also important. So the reason why prong collars were designed is because even though it looks horrifying, like, I'll give it that, it looks like a medieval torture device, right? The reason why it's really important is because the prongs lift it up off of the skin, right? So it is lifted up off of it. If you had a normal leash, then it would be directly on top of the skin, right? And you can actually suffocate your dog. Or a flat collar, which puts all the pressure right onto the trachea. This center dividing plate, it goes on top of the trachea, right? So it actually protects the dog and their physical integrity by when this is put onto the trachea right here, no pressure is put onto the throat, right? Which is really, really, really important. You'll see a lot of toy breeds get tracheal collapse because they're constantly pulling into their collar. And, you know, with little dogs, you just, you know, pull them all over the place. And so that's how it like destroys the dog's throat. So prong collar, we use it for safety, but also for communication. Now, the way that it was designed is not for pulling, right? It was made to be an annoyance tool of negative reinforcement. So that's the other thing to understand, like for you, what you were talking about sometimes it's hard to be emotionally removed from things like giving corrections through the prong collar, right? So remember that when we give communication, it's just a very quick boop, and that is it, right? It is not a pulling sort of thing of like, hey, come over here. When it comes to loose leash walking, which is what we use a lot of the prong collar for, you'll see a lot of people try and like pull dogs. You can only slack a dog back to you, right? Slack is made for an annoyance tool. Or you can do tapping through the e-collar. You know how I was tapping on the e-collar a lot? You can do the same thing with the prong collar as well. So the prong collar, I typically only use it for walks. It goes on before we go on a walk. It comes off afterwards. So that's just like the tool itself that goes onto the dog. But where the magic truly, truly happens is what happens with the leash. And the leash is probably the #1 most abused tool in the world, probably. Because a lot of people think of the leash as a tool of restraint, of just like, I have my dog, you cannot get away from me. Whereas the leash should actually be used as a communication tool, right? So the leash, for one, should always have slack in it, right? If I am trying to communicate, I can't communicate through something that's taut like that, right? Can I communicate through something like this? Yeah, absolutely, right? Because when I do this, I can open and close the prong collar, okay? So 90% of our information is passed down through the leash. So let's pretend that Ruger is here on the leash. What are you looking for? You are looking for the buckle to go down and a small letter J shape. That's what you're looking for, right? And because he's like kind of tiny, even if you had it like this, that's totally okay. But the most part is that you want to have that buckle down. Once your buckle starts to do this, you got problems in your line of communication, right? You're gonna have some points of contention with your dog. So you need to find a way, whatever it is, to relieve that tension and bring back your loose leash with your dog, okay? So that's what you are looking for. Now, let's travel up the leash a little bit more. Your left hand and your right hand, what should they be doing? The way that we hold our leash is super important. The leash should be resting on our thumbs just like this, and just hold it over just like that. Just like you're driving a car or you're riding on a bicycle, right? Just like this, right? Resting on your thumbs, just like that. So, just like that. The leash should be almost like it's feeding through your hand, right? So with your left hand, you don't want to give your dog too much slack, just enough to have that little J shape in it. But if you have too much slack in your leash, if he starts going forward in the heel position and you have the leash just like this, you got to swing your arm all the way back like that to give any sort of communication, right? So you want to only have enough that as you're walking, your arm should be able to comfortably swing just like this. And if you need to give a correction, all you have to do is give a quick flick of your wrist just like that to give a quick pop on the leash, right? So just enough. Your right hand is what I like to call your anchor hand, right? So the leash almost never moves out of this hand. So you can hold it just like this. You can put it over your wrist, whatever it may be, and then you just take the slack up just like that, right? So when you're walking your dog, what you should look like. Resting on your hands, just like that. Enough slack to him, but not too much. Leash, leash. And here is what you should look like. And you should just be able to walk down the street just like this, really comfortably, right? Just like that. Alternatively, especially if you got one of these biothane ones, one of the really easy things that you can do is also you could just loop it like that, right? You still have enough slack for him, buckle down letter J, just like that, but all of the leashes in here. You're probably seeing a lot of my loose leash walking videos, like where I'm walking, like the leash is curled in my hand like that, so just like that. Okay, so now here's the first hands-on portion where, for you, you're going to, so rest it on your thumbs, just like that. Bring it down to your side, just like that. And then remember to take up the slack. So do you want this in your wrist? Do you want it just in your hand? However, just like that, perfect. And you go just like that, right? Now, when it comes to walking, your body language is very important, right? Because 90% of the information is passed down through the leash. You want to be relaxed. So relax it, however you would stand, right? Pretend you're standing at the grocery market, right? So you're standing at the grocery market and you need to have an air of confidence. So confidence is going to be shoulders down and back, and you're going to be head up, and you're going to be tall, and you're going to be confident, right? That's how you should present yourself, right? And you should be really smooth, right? It's not an uptight thing of just like, oh my God, I hope my dog doesn't move from position. It's just like, he knows what he's supposed to do. If he goes out, totally fine. I'll just provide information of like, hey dude, you gotta come back, right? Yeah. So you should be able to comfortably swing your arms as well. When we start walking, that's one of the things I'm gonna tell you. Have a little swing in your arm, be confident, right? Okay. How much correction you give through the leash is exactly, a lot of it, remember like I said, like 90 times that I use the leash, I'm going to be giving that like little bit of information, right? Of just like, hey, like slow down a little bit, speed up, like no, you can't sniff over there, like whatever it is. And just like quick little taps on the leash, which we are going to practice. We'll take a big loop around the neighborhood. And then if he does something that requires more of a correction, that just requires a little bit more of a pop, right? And that's really key, it's a pop on the leash. It's not like a yank, right? Because just to demonstrate, so if you were to hold that and hold it tight, right? Okay. If I go like this, what are you doing?
Yeah, you're like pulling and we're both like tug of war right now.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is opposition reflex. Okay. But if I do this and hold on, and you hold on to that tight, and I go, stop barking, stop pulling, stop lunging, right? Yeah. So that, right? So this is like, hey, right? This is your communication. This is correction. Okay. And then positive punishment, right? Does that make sense?
Hey! Hi! You're for real! Hi! Hey!
Isn't he so big?
Hey, you're cute! You're a monster! You're big!
You're a monster! I just saw you.
Hi! Hi! He's like, wait, no, I know you. Hey!
Hi, buddy! Yeah, and it looks like there's doggies up ahead. Hey guys. So that will be perfect. So when it comes to the walk, I try and be really nitpicky with the walk. So what that means is that if, like for example, he was looking back at those people there, there's no reason for him to be looking backwards, right? So if he looks at things behind me, or he's pulling ahead and he's looking, see those ears up? So level 4. There we go. And now relaxed ear position, right?
Oh, okay.
Relaxed, right? So the ears tell a lot. And as he gets older, it'll be a lot easier for you to see that. But what you're looking for is for that really relaxed head position, that his head is in a neutral position and he's really calm and he's really relaxed, right? When those ears come up and forward, that means that he has, see how he's, good boy. He's really distracted by something, primarily you, which is fine, which usually happens. So when it comes to walking, I'm gonna have my leash in my hand, going to have my e-collar, all the slack on this side, and he's pulling ahead, so leash pops backwards. And all that I was doing, I was giving a few of them. So back, just like that, because remember, it's an annoyance tool, right? So leash taps backwards. And then just going to heel. And then when we get up ahead, I will go ahead and demonstrate some of those different loose leash walking drills that we're going to be doing. So just keep on going straight. And if he looked over there to see what the kids were doing, and I just gave some taps on the e-collar for that one. And for me, I can tell that he's really excited because he's responding a lot better to a level 12. So you can know how excited he is when it comes to different situations by what level he's responding, right? If he's on a walk and he's responding on a level 5, he's pretty chill. He's in a good state of mind, right? But because you're here, Matt's walking in front of us, there's a lot of things happening. Nope. Then he wants to go and do a bunch of different things. Gotcha. So he wanted to go into the grass right then, and I just simply said, no, you're not going to do that. Use the leash to bring him back into the heel position. But I am going to check to see if he needs to go potty really fast up ahead, and I'll show you what that looks like.
He's doing so great, though.
He is really good. Go potty. And that's his cue that he can go off. He can tinkle. So we're going to go ahead and stop right here. And you can stop right here. What I'm going to do, sit, good, is I am going to demonstrate just right here back and forth what that 180-degree turns look like, and then the L turns and everything else, okay? So I'm going to put the e-collar away. This is just going to be leash and prong collar work at the current moment, okay? So when I walk, I'm going to go in a straight line and then pivot and come right back, and I'll narrate sort of what that looks like. Ready? Heel. So I'm going to walk straight, and then I'm going to do a right hand turn, and he followed me, so no leash correction needed, right? He may try and go to you, pop on the leash, and then back to me. Good boy. And then 180-degree turn, no leash correction needed, and then let's see if he tries to go to you again, which, yep, pop on the leash, and then that's it. And it wasn't a hard pop, right? Did you see? It was just a very pop. And then let's see if he tries it again. Nope. Sit, down. Good. Alrighty. So those are the kind of drills, and then how to apply the leash correction too. Also notice one of the things that when I gave the leash correction, that it was with my anchor hand, and I was more horizontal when I did it, right? I didn't give a correction upwards. When I was turning away, as I turn, I kind of bent over a little bit, and I was horizontal with his body with the leash and gave a quick pop on the leash, and I continued to move, right? Because dogs want to follow that movement. So the next thing that I'm going to demonstrate is your left hand turns, right? You also notice that I haven't said heel a lot of times, right? A part of the criteria of behavior, this is a working command, right? It's something that continuously goes. I expect you to yield to my body pressure and continue to follow me. The times that I would use heel is if we are in a situation like this where you are in a down or a sit or a climb, whatever it is, and then I begin on the walk because he doesn't know when I'm going to go, right? I want to be courteous to him and let him know that I'm about to start, right? Instead of just like giving him corrections on the leash, right? So, Ruger, heel. Good boy. So I'm gonna do a left hand turn right here in this driveway. And watch what I do with my left arm, that if he was in my way, I'm just simply going to give a leash pop with my left arm. So this is gonna be a hard one for him. Leash pop, and I'm using my left leg to herd him into the right position, right? So I know that this is more of a circle. Circles are also fine, doesn't have to be a left hand, but the point of the matter is that if he was pushing forward, if he were in the wrong position, I would run right into him, right? Sit, down, good. All of the commands also have an implied stay, right? So I don't use stay in my training. It's just simply I give the command, I give it once, and you must continue to do that command unless I do one of two things. I say come, or I say break, right? So those are the two things. Now, when it comes to e-collar pressure, you can also substitute the e-collar, substitute it for the leash, right? So as I was walking, if I had done that 180-degree turn and he had not turned with me, I'm just simply going to turn on pressure, right, until he yields to it, right? Because it's just a tension, it's interrupting, right? So I'll kind of demonstrate and kind of show what that may look like. Heel. Good boy. So if I turn, no pressure needed. Let's see if I turn again because Matt's right here. Oh, no pressure needed. I won't unnecessarily correct him. But should I had turned and he continued to go that way, I'm just going to tap, 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 and then continue to move. I'll wait for him to scratchy scratch. Yeah. And then continue to move. And then once he turns back to me, that's when I would stop tapping on the e-collar, right? Alrighty, and then that is all you. Awesome. Right, and then keep going. There you go. Nice and relaxed. Cool, cool, perfect.
Nice.
Yep, arms are swinging, right? You're nice and relaxed. And you should check in with him intermittently, right? You don't need to be staring at him, but it's good that you check in with him because he should also be kind of checking in with you as well.
Can I like talk to him and that kind of thing?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Hey, bud. He's like, yeah, okay, cool. She's got the food.
Uh-huh.
You're doing so good.
One of the things that I practice with him a lot is what I like to, a lot of dog trainers do this, but it's called poop downs. And so if you go poop, I am going to put you on the sidewalk, I'm going to put you in a down, and you stay there while I go and clean up your poop.
Oh, that's super helpful.
So
yeah,
a really,
I thought of that.
yeah, just because there's nothing worse than trying to like fight with a leash as your dog is like, you know, and you're trying to pick up poop.
Yeah.
So poop downs, and it's a good way to like reinforce downs. He'll probably look at you expectantly. Nope. Good boy. He'll probably look at you expectantly in the morning of like he's in a down and he's like waiting for something because I usually like gave him like some of his like a pretty big chunk of breakfast whenever he was in that down.
So in the morning when you're training, are you using his food to train him? Okay, cool.
Yep. So he usually gets his entire breakfast when we're out on a walk, and he got used to having about like a 20 to 30 minute walk, which is usually about a mile.
Yep, that's about what we do in the morning.
Perfect. Yep. Like I was talking about before, it is now your job to scan the environment. It's no longer his job. Let's continue on this sidewalk here. So you need to be looking at different things in the environment and judge his reactions to them, right? Like before, he probably would have noticed that and started to stare at them, right? So it's your job to notice that. And the second that those ears come up and that attention goes forward, you need to give a tap tap on the e-collar to break his attention off of that, right?
And we're at a 12 right now.
But that's also something of just like, if you give that much and you don't see any sort of change in behavior, then you no need to go up. If he has a big reaction, then you just scroll down, right?
Oh, he's doing great. Such a big change. And he looks, I mean, he looks huge too. It's like
I know.
a different dog.
But look at how his face is.
Come on.
Good job. See how the ears are back? There's no wrinkles on the forehead. See how his head position is like kind of lower?
Right.
So these are all very neutral signs. Like that is like a happy, content, and like really well balanced dog, right? The moment that those ears go forward and the head comes up and the eyes locked in and the wrinkles appear on the forehead, that's when something's happening in the environment and you need to change his response, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the garage, and what I want you to do is I will bring the elevated dog bed up. I want you to walk up to the elevated dog bed, and I want you to say climb and use leash guidance to bring him onto the elevated dog bed. And when he goes on, I want you to then say good and give him some affection.
Okay, cool. You're killing it, bud.
And also sometimes so not only when I am stopped and then I start walking do I say heel, but also when I have a sudden change of direction, right? Okay. He thinks we're gonna keep on going straight until we keep on going straight. But now we're going to turn left. So you're gonna say heel, heel. Good job. So that way, just to give some consideration to our dog that we are going to be changing direction, right? Because this is our walk. And so he is going to be a part of it. So he's probably gonna start pulling ahead because I'm going ahead as well. And if he does, just give him those gentle corrections backwards. And now you're gonna say climb, lead up. Climb. Good boy. Down. Good boy. Good.
Blown away that he's like for me, to put him in a down, he would never like
lay down.
Like
yeah.
Like his down is like, okay, I'm down, but I'm not like
relaxed,
yeah.
right? And that's a lot of, teaching your dog obedience is super great, super beneficial, but unless you actually change their state of mind, then no amount of obedience is really gonna do anything, right? So, but because I gave him a down, I do have to hold him accountable to that. So those bicycles went by, Matt was moving behind him, and if he had popped up from that, I just would have said, no, tap, tap, and then down.
Okay.
So with all of my commands, if I say, good, do you see his little head tilt? He knows that a reward is coming. I want to say good first, and then I want to reach, and then I want to deliver. Because if I say good and I reach at the same time, I have to reward that one, then your word doesn't actually have power. It's your physical moving that has power. So he's on the elevated dog bed. One of the things that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna practice going 180 degrees. It's hard for dogs to have things behind them, so I like to practice that. He's gonna shift so that way he can keep his eyes on me and keep focused. And then I'm just gonna come around, and I come around again. Maybe I come out, and I'm going to, good. Ears come forward. He's like, I know what that word means, right? So I like to practice going out, good. Coming back in, giving that reward, moving around, whatever it may be, being really exciting, going, good boy, right? And these are really good drills to practice at home, which he'll get a lot of practice on, just that way you can utilize this when you have guests come over, when the doorbell rings, when the cats are running around, whatever it is, right? Good.
So, 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, do you put him in a climb while you're like out and about? Like if we were to go to like a coffee shop or something and there's like a bench, can you put him in a climb there?
Heck
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Usually if you don't have that, just like a downstay.
A downstay.
Downstay.
Okay, cool.
That for in the car as well. Sorry, I didn't mean it. Sorry.
No,
I kept cutting you off. Go ahead.
No. The other question I had was how long are you generally? Is like 30 minutes is where he's at right now?
Minimum is 30 minutes,
okay.
but like he's gotten up to like 4 hours.
Really?
Totally fine. I recommend if you could, like 30 minutes is a minimum, but if you could do an hour and a half to 2.5 hours, that's a really good. And you don't have to do it in like okay, I have to have 2.5 hours to dedicate to this dog. No, like do an hour and a half session in the morning, do an hour and a half session like at night, right? You're watching a movie, like awesome. Put him on a climb, like you see my entertainment center. I usually have like a dog bed there. Like put him on a climb, and he's just on there, right?
Cool. Yeah, I guess I was wondering like if I get into a meeting and the meeting is running over, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a 30-minute meeting. He's good to be like there for an hour.
Oh, 4 hours, 5 hours. Like he's good, right? Good. Yep.
He's killing it. I'm like so blown away right now.
He's a good boy.